Hi, I'm Christy Bowman, and I'm a Science Content Specialist at the Ohio Resource Center for Mathematics, Science, and Reading, more commonly known as ORC. This podcast is part of a series of podcasts that provides an overview of the sections found in the New Teacher Survival Guide. Each podcast has a science teacher bookshelf and a mini collection of resources to supplement it. Podcast titles include Assessment, In the Lab, Plants and Animals in the Classroom, Science in the Elementary Classroom, Teaching Science, Reference Materials, and Special Needs Students in the Science Classroom. This podcast highlights the types of resources found in the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. You may be thinking, why is there a section in the New Teacher Survival Guide devoted to plants and animals in the classroom? Having plants and animals in the classroom can be instructionally important for a couple of reasons according to Ohio's life science standards. Let's start by talking about why it's important to have plants in your classroom. Growing plants in the classroom could help you visually introduce the basic needs and structures necessary for plant survival in various environments. It may even provide a unique way for your students to compare the life cycles of different plants. It's also important to house live animals and/or use animals for dissection purposes in your classroom. Doing this may provide a way for you to relate animal structures to their specific survival functions or even compare the life cycles of different animals. Using animals could even provide a way to investigate the great variety of body plans and internal structures found in multicellular organisms. So now that you know why it's important to include plants and animals in your classroom, let's talk about some of the resources found in the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. These resources may help you address concerns that may arise from having plants and animals in your classroom. Let's start by discussing some of the highlights of ORC resource number 9126, Responsible Use of Live Animals and Dissection in the Science Classroom. This resource from the National Science Teachers Association, also known as NSTA, gives teachers guidelines for the appropriate care for and dissection of animals in the classroom. NSTA states in this resource that student interaction with organisms is one of the most effective methods of achieving many of the goals outlined in the National Science Education Standards. NSTA also encourages teachers to make informed decisions about the integration of animals in the science curriculum and consistently ask teachers to balance the ethical and responsible care of animals with their educational value. Along with this, Ohio's life science standards state many topics that can be effectively taught by incorporating plants and animals into your classroom instructions, such as habitats, survival structures, basic needs, life cycles, body plans, and internal structures. It is important to note that this resource primarily focuses on vertebrate animals, but does point out that similar ethical practices should be followed for all living organisms. NSTA provides a couple of reasons as to why live organisms should be used in the science classroom. First, observing and working with animals firsthand can spark students' interest in science. Second, using live animals can create a general respect for life while reinforcing key standards-based concepts. This resource also supports teachers' decisions to use animal dissection activities to help students in 3 areas. First, to develop skills of observation and comparison. Second, to discover the shared and unique structures and processes of specific organisms. And third, to develop a greater appreciation for the complexity of life. Lastly, NSTA points out that there are various alternatives to dissection should a teacher feel this would be a better option for a student or a certain group of students. Should this be the route that is most appropriate for your class, take advantage of ORC's searchable database and the virtual dissections found on ORC's homepage at www.ohioRC.org. Type in virtual dissection in the light blue search box on the left side of the page to take advantage of the many virtual dissections found in ORC's collection. ORC resource number 9135, Terrariums, is a resource that is also found in the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. Let's talk about some of the highlights of this resource, such as how can terrariums be used in the classroom. Terrariums provide a way to introduce live plants to a classroom that require minimal maintenance once they are set up. Terrariums can be designed and maintained either by teachers or students and could be used as a visual way to introduce basic needs and structures necessary for plant survival in various environments. I'm going to provide you with some suggestions and highlights from this resource for planning for, designing, and maintaining a terrarium. First of all, you must decide upon whether you want a terrarium that is open or closed or that is a dish garden. This resource elaborates on the 3 different types of terrariums for those of you wishing to know the differences among them. Also, a clear container must be used as opposed to a tinted container that reduces the light transmittance and interferes with plant growth. An exception to this would be the dish garden. This type of container does not have to be transparent since the container does not have high sides and therefore will not interfere with light transmittance and plant growth. You must also decide upon a specific type of environment that you'd like to create, a woodland, tropical, or desert environment. Keep in mind the light and temperature conditions in the location where you plan to place the terrarium. Then you must choose a type of growing medium. Any type of soil that is used must be clean, well-drained, and high in organic matter. Garden centers and nurseries are a great source for this type of potting soil. This resource also contains an alphabetized list of many plants that would be suitable for the different types of terrarium environments. So now that you have some tips on how to plan for a terrarium, check out this resource for more specific steps on how to assemble your own terrarium and tips on how to design it. Lastly, ORC resource number 9135, Terrariums, does a great job of providing suggestions for caring for your terrarium. Tips such as watering, light adjustments, pruning the vegetation, and fertilization are included. For more specific details on how to design and maintain a terrarium in your classroom, see ORC resource number 9135, Terrariums. ORC resource number 9133, Selecting and Setting Up an Aquarium, is also found in the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide and is the last resource that I'm going to point out. This resource provides information on setting up and maintaining both salt and freshwater aquariums. I'm going to mention a few highlights from this resource, including choosing aquarium size, location of your aquarium, filtration, lighting, and gravel. This resource states that selection of a larger aquarium will provide more versatility, greater species selection, and will make it easier to maintain the proper water quality. You will also need to consider the location of the aquarium. It should be placed away from direct sunlight, away from a heat or air conditioning source, away from a high-traffic area, and close to an electrical outlet and water source. Filtration should also be very high on your priority list when setting up an aquarium. The size and capability of the filtration system must be appropriate both for the aquarium gallonage and the number and size of the fish in the aquarium. Lighting must accomplish 2 things. First, it must sustain the life in the aquarium, and second, it must be visually appealing to you. The smaller aquariums, under 55 gallons, should have a single full-spectrum fluorescent tube, and aquariums over 55 gallons should have twin fluorescent tubes. The gravel placed in the aquarium shouldn't have any sharp edges. If you are using live plants, do not use sand as it will compact too tightly around the roots. More specific details on setting up and maintaining an aquarium, as well as answers to questions concerning reefs, ponds, and reptiles, can also be found in ORC resource number 9133, Selecting and Setting Up an Aquarium. These resources are just 3 examples of the types of resources that you will find in the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. For additional resources focusing on plants and animals in the classroom, go to the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide on ORC's website or use the search feature to look for lessons at www.ohioRC.org. I would like to thank you for joining me for today's podcast focusing on the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. Don't forget to check out the resources that supplement this podcast by going to the Science Educators page on ORC's website and clicking on New Teacher Survival Guide. For the Ohio Resource Center, I'm Christy Bowman, hoping you gain some insight into the types of resources found in the Plants and Animals in the Classroom section of the New Teacher Survival Guide.